Welcome everyone. I'm Amy Young, Director of Communications for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. We are joined today by Deputy Sheriff Neil Delasante, who works in our jail bureau, and we're here to discuss a new position with the Sheriff's Office, relatively new, called the Security Process Analyst. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, welcome Deputy Delasante. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with our agency, and what you enjoy about working for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Amy. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for a little over 22 years in the jail bureau the whole time. I've had the privilege to not only work in many different housing areas and units within the jail, but to be able to do some specialized things like field training officer. I was a training coordinator for a little while. I got to be a technician for a little bit, firearms instructor, general topics instructor, and now this position, which is a very unique and special opportunity.
Tell us a little bit more about the position, the Security Process Analyst.
Well, it was envisioned by the sheriff and implemented by Superintendent Matt Vandesy. What used to be called Red Cell or Red Team. The military used it back in the mid-1980s to basically test their security. They would send in, special operations forces to test the security of their bases to make sure that the things that were in place were working the way they were supposed to. So while I'm not a special operations operator in any way, shape, or form, that same idea is being employed here as far as looking at the way our processes and the way that we do business, and making sure that it's the most efficient that it can be, that it works the way that we intend it to work, and that we're the ones that find problems, if there are any, and apply solutions so that we stay ahead of the game.
It sounds like you were kind of given carte blanche to do what you will with the position and make it your own. What do you hope to achieve? What are some of your goals?
Yeah, it was a very open-ended directive when it was given to me, and it was just basically it was, take a look at everything and make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. It's not a gotcha type of thing. We're not looking to catch people up and get them in trouble. We're looking to improve the way we do business if we need to. I took it from a standpoint of I really don't know what I don't know. And I started off with kind of a laundry list of things that I thought we could improve on, but then from there, and we started to make those improvements, but then from there I started to do some research into escapes, basically, and the factors that go into successful escapes. And from that research, I looked back the last probably 30 years or so, over 20 or between 20 and 25 different escapes, mostly in New York State, some nationwide. Developed a list basically of some commonalities in those escapes. It's given me some tools to use as far as probing our own security to make sure that we're not vulnerable to those things.
What did you learn? It sounds fascinating to study escapes.
The biggest thing that I've learned is that the little details really matter. That it's never, I hate to use the word never, but in any of the escapes that I've looked at, it was never one thing that happened that you're like, oh, well, that's how it happened. There were multiple steps over the course of time, missteps, I should say, over the course of time that led to a major catastrophe. And if at any point one or two of those small details had been addressed, it's very likely that those major catastrophe, that escape, wouldn't have happened.
So take us through a day in the life of Deputy Neil Delasante. What do you do every day? Where do you begin?
Well, I mean, it can be as mundane as pouring through our written policy to make sure that it matches up with the laws that that we're beholden to, and the procedures that we're actually following. And it can also be as exciting as developing a test operation that sometimes can involve some clandestine operation and some sneaking around, so to speak, to try to test our policies and our procedures to see if they're effective.
Without sharing too many details with us, have you discovered anything and looked for improvements here at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office?
We've actually made a great deal of improvements just in the short year that I've been doing this. As much as I can't kind of go into detail on some of it, there have been a great deal of improvements. Some things that we have kind of known we wanted and needed for years, that the timing was right and we were able to push them forward, and other things that we've discovered just within the last year that we maybe wouldn't have known about if I hadn't been doing this. So yeah, it's been a very positive experience so far.
And as you said, some of those things are little minute details, but when married together, they can definitely do some damage or put us at risk.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you earned this position, Neil, Deputy Delasante. Please tell us why you were selected and how you were selected.
Well, I know I've always been known to not keep my mouth shut, especially when something is important and vital to the organization. But I like to think that possibly my organization skills and my attention to detail went into some of that decision making. But I mean, I know that I guess for something like this, you can't be quiet about things either. You can't sometimes settle for one conversation. Sometimes you have to push it a little bit and make sure that people realize, that the severity of the issue.
How are the other deputies maybe working in tandem with you, or do they understand the position? Do they know what you're doing? I know some of it is.
I don't know, and maybe this information will help. I don't know that all of them know, but I try to make an effort either through casual conversation, or when we do an actual test operation, the deputies that are involved, if any, we sit and talk to afterwards, have kind of a debriefing, see where their mindset was, whether the test went well or whether we exposed a vulnerability. So we try to, with each step that we take, kind of bring everybody into the fold and share the information that we've learned, so that we don't make those mistakes again, and so that everybody knows that we're on the same side as they are. We're not trying to jam them up or make them look bad. We're trying to make us all look better.
How does this position play off of some of the other quality control functions that MCSO has, accreditations and standards and compliance?
Well, I think it ties in directly. It's direct complement to that type of position, because I'm doing very much like they go through and do inspections. Some of that is what I'm doing, but also, I mean, more of a detailed kind of probing to make sure that when nobody's paying attention, when nobody knows they're being inspected, are we still getting the results that we want? So I think it directly complements those kind of programs and makes us or puts us in compliance even more so.
I know you said research was a big part of this project for you. Can you tell us where you visited? Did you visit other?
Most of we are in the process of kind of going around to different facilities to see the way that they do business. Most of the research that I've done up until now has been reading and video and that type of absorption of the material, more than a physical visiting of a facility. We have been able to visit several facilities locally to try to get an idea, what are you doing that we're not doing, what are we doing that you're not doing, and kind of sharing of information. But that's still kind of a work in progress, that we're not where we want to be yet, but that's definitely on the radar and definitely the direction we're going in.
We may never know some of the results of your work, right? Because some of it is on the down low, right?
Yes,
So,
hopefully it hides behind the scenes and just makes things safer for all of us, and you don't know that it's even happening.
The best thing. How do you share that information, though, with our agency to whatever degree that you can?
Again, a lot of it is word of mouth. There are some things that are policy changes that get pushed out just like any other policy change. But and a lot of it is that way, that those type of directives. I know there is an intention by the sheriff, I think, to have a training piece put into this, not only on the in terms of what is this position that maybe people aren't aware of, but what can I, the individual deputy, do to improve my everyday vigilance, to make things safer and to make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
Fascinating work. Thank you for all you do, Deputy Neil Delasante with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, and thank you for keeping us safe.
Thank you, Amy.